Hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining me today. This is Research with Lorelei number 3. And this is a little mini series. I think it's going to be about 5 videos altogether about brain retraining and mind-body therapy research that I find interesting. And my only intention in making these videos is to share some of my journey and some of the research that you might find helpful in your journey. And I'm not a doctor or a medical practitioner, clinical counselor, psychologist. This is just some of the research that I found interesting and applicable to brain retraining and mind-body therapy. So this information is for educational purposes only, and any implementation should be discussed with your own medical team. So as I stated in my previous videos, I've tried to pick and choose which research studies I find interesting. And so this is not an encompassing review of all the studies that are out there. And Research with Lorelei number 1 and number 2, I'll put the links in the video description. So let's get started. I'm so excited. So one of the current theories regarding chronic fatigue syndrome is that this disease may be a neuroimmune disorder in the brain, leading to dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system, and particularly the sympathetic nervous system being stuck in fight, flight, or fright. And prolonged disturbance of the body's physiology leads to illness, illness such as ME/CFS, which is chronic fatigue syndrome, and other disorders like irritable bowel syndrome and multiple chemical sensitivities, sleep disturbance, fatigue, migraines, depression, anxiety. Lots of disorders can result from what they think is a stuck fear-stress response in the body. So for background, for people who are interested of impact of stress on body function, so this is an article, I don't know if you can see that or not, by, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, Yaribeygi, 2017, The Impact of Stress on Body Function. It's a good review. So I'll put the that reference in the video description for anybody who wants to look into it more in depth. And another one is by Gouin et al. And I had it here, but I can't find it. But anyway, it's by Gouin et al. Gouin at 2011. And it was a really good paper about the impact of prolonged stress on the body regarding wound healing. And I do actually have it here. It's the impact of physiological stress on wound healing. So they had 11 dental students who had a little biopsy on their hard palate before summer vacation or during the summer vacation, and then 3 days before final exams. And they found that so it's the same 11 students. They do it before or during summer exams, and then they monitor the wound healing rate, and then they do the biopsy again, or the little sort of sample puncture on the top of their hard palate during sort of just before a major exam. And they found that the wound healing time differed by 40%. So the stressful situation, the wounds healed 40% slower than when the same students were in summer vacation. So that was pretty amazing. So I'll put that research paper in the video description. So cortisol is released upon stress and has been shown to suppress the immune system and increase wound healing time. So this is just a sample of some effects that the body has, a sort of prolonged significant stress on the body, and also, shorter term stresses such as the wound healing time. So techniques like brain retraining, mindfulness, CBT, or cognitive behavior therapy which I talked about, meditation, laughter, other mind-body therapies like yoga, they remediate stress. And so you're optimizing your ability to heal, and you're optimizing your body's physiology. So those are sort of two sort of sample papers about stress and physiology. So current research that supports the disruption of the autonomic nervous system regulation is, the first paper I'm going to present is by Mackay and Tate. So I will put that in the video description. So Mackay and Tate published this paper in 2018, and interestingly enough, so the senior author, Mackay, actually came down with chronic fatigue syndrome about 15 years ago, and they did a study showing that the paraventricular nucleus in the hypothalamus, so it's a portion of the hypothalamus, this portion of the hypothalamus is responsible for absorbing and processing stress signals in the brain, and they thought that if this neuronal circuitry was affected by inflammation, then chronic fatigue syndrome patients would have this ongoing hypersensitivity to stress, and it could also explain the long-term sort of perpetuation of the disease. So triggers such as viral infection, toxins, trauma, they could also target the hypothalamic PVN or paraventricular nucleus and disrupt its function. So they published this paper in International Journal of Immunopathology and Pharmacology. I said it properly. And so they did PET scans and MRI scans of chronic fatigue syndrome patients. And these scans showed evidence of glial cell activation in the limbic system of the brain. So glial cells in the brain, or glial cell activation, what it does is it releases pro-inflammatory cytokines and neurotoxic molecules, and it produces neuroinflammation of the brain and central nervous system. And so all that fancy jargon just means that when they did the PET scan and MRI scan of chronic fatigue syndrome patients, they found that there was a lot of glial cell activation in the limbic system of the brain. So that was pretty interesting, which is tied in with sympathetic nervous system activation and the fear, fight, flight, overdrive. And the glial cell activation produces the neuroinflammation or inflammation of the brain, and they think that this limbic system and hypothalamic involvement could then disrupt the autonomic nervous system and account for this wide range of symptoms in chronic fatigue patients. So fatigue, mood, cognitive function, sleep, temperature control, GI disturbance, blood pressure issues. So that was pretty exciting that they've actually shown that this area of the brain is inflamed and has something going on in this situation. And so this of course supports the amygdala, insula, and limbic dysfunction models outlined in the Gupta paper in 2002, and that the Gupta program and other brain retraining programs can dial down the sympathetic nervous system overdrive and potentially affect the physiology of chronic fatigue patients. Okay, so that was a mouthful. Okay. And so another paper that just got published in 2021 was a paper by Clin et al. Now, where is that? Put that. and it's called insular cortex neurons encode and retrieve specific immune responses. And it was also, this paper was actually also summarized in Scientific American in 2021 because it was so groundbreaking that so what they've shown for the first time, which is amazing, is that so they had mice and they induced two different gut inflammatory conditions. So they induced colitis, which is inflammation of the colon, and peritonitis, which is inflammation of the abdominal cavity. And then they mapped associated areas of the brain that were lit up. And these areas were actually found in the insular cortex, which has very strong connections to the limbic system. And so what happened then after the gut inflammation settled down, Corrin et al. Activated the same areas of the brain with a drug, in the same areas of the brain. And what happened was the brain directed the immune system to mount inflammation in the gut at the original site of the infection, even though there was no gut infection. So that is how powerful the link between mind and body is that these mice, you go ahead and activate the area of the brain that was lit up during the gut inflammation. So the gut inflammation is gone now. You go and stimulate the area of the brain that was lit up at this as a result of the gut infection. Then the brain actually will remount the same immune response in the gut, even though there's nothing in the gut. And so so this shows that the insular cortex, which remembers past infections and can remount an inflammatory response. So, for those who are doing brain retraining and know the theory that is exactly what brain retraining does, is that it retrains the brain to not mount the sympathetic overdrive or whatever has gone awry in our brain systems. So the amygdala and insular retraining in the brain retraining programs actively train the mind to turn off their immune response or whatever defense mechanism that our bodies have now learned to do, and put the body back into rest, heal, digest, and rebalance the autonomic nervous system. So that was a pretty exciting article. And one more book I guess I'm going to talk about is by Kelly McGonigal, and her book is called The Upside of Stress and Why Stress is Good for You and How to Get Good at It. So she has some good TEDx talks for those of you who aren't able to read her book. So all this sort of stuff about stress. She actually found through her research that it's not always the stress, but it's how you think about the stress that can activate sort of the cortisol and the hormones and the physiology that is not so good for us. So she says that stress can enhance performance, and how we think about it can actually affect our physiology. So for an example, she suggests that if let's say we have a small amount of stress, not prolonged, not severe, but a small amount of stress. Let's say we're going to cram for an exam in a few days, or we're running a little late and we're going to rush for the bus. If you think about, my body can absolutely handle a little amount of stress for the short period of time. And my body was built to, run away or run to, or, to have some stress. Let's say, harvest is coming and the frost is coming and you need to get the harvest in, within a few days. Our bodies can absolutely handle the stress. And if you go into that with that kind of mindset, you actually do not activate the cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine response. So that was pretty amazing. So her book is very interesting. I'm just going forward here. So it's how we think about stress that actually generates the stress chemistry. And I'll put a link in the description about some of the videos and articles that I find interesting. But I thought that was a great little tidbit about how our minds work with our bodies. And the last book that I'm going to talk about is Dr. Rick Hanson, Hardwiring Happiness. I think many of you have heard me talk about Dr. Rick Hanson before in a number of my other videos. I love his work. And his book is great. It looks like this. And he actually just published another paper. So I was very excited. It's called Learning to Learn from Positive Experiences. And it's published in the Journal of Positive Psychology. So basically, his book is about, we have a limbic brain. It's predisposed to take in negative, that sort of negative evolutionary bias, which I've talked about lots before, and how our brains automatically hang on to, looking out for fear, likes to flick to the future and the past, and look for danger. Am I worthy? Am I going to get kicked out of my tribe? Am I safe? Do I have food? Do I have water? And he talks about how we can absolutely turn that fear and worry response off and actually be happier. And his framework for his book is called HEAL. So this will look familiar for those of you who are already doing brain retraining. So HEAL is his acronym for the 4 steps of how to take in the good, soak in the good, and notice. So it does have a lot of sort of mindfulness techniques in this as well. And I've talked about mindfulness before. And so HEAL is, H is have a positive experience. So you either are having one and you can notice that, hey, I'm having a great experience. Or you go into a visualization of, oh, that was a great experience. Or you can go into the future where, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to go on vacation with my kids and this is going to happen. So you have a positive experience. And then you enrich it. So what that means is you stay with the experience for at least 5 seconds or 3 breaths, and you soak in that good. And you notice your body sensations, your feelings, your thoughts. And let sort of the dimensions of the experience fill your mind and try and build it in intensity. And A is to absorb it, so to really let it sink in and feel that sort of energy in your body. And the last one is link. So you've let the feel-good chemicals in your body sink in and try to hold it in your heart, feel it in your mind and in your body, and then you want to link it with that positive experience to something that you want to work on. and it could be some negative thought patterns or something that else is going on, so that you're training your brain to be able to hold both positive and negative emotions, and the positive emotions dampen down the negative emotions. So you're sort of learning to deal with the duality of life, and that there may be some great things happening, but sometimes rain showers happen, and you want to sort of have resources to positive resources to help you be more resilient and cope with the negative things that may be happening in your life, or the things that you don't want to happen. Okay, so in his paper, super interesting, he has a new, he has actually a number of courses on his website, and he has a podcast too, and YouTube videos, free newsletters. So he has what's called a Foundations of Well-Being course on his website for $450, and he has also what's called a Positive Neuroplasticity training course for $299. I haven't taken those courses, but they sound super interesting. But he did write this paper. So this is his paper here. And subjects had, let's see, they had a full course, that Taking in the Good course, which is, I'm assuming it's a derivation of his Positive Neuroplasticity course and his Foundations of Wellbeing course, because the Taking in the Good course is actually not offered on his website. But participants reported significant increases in positive emotions, total happiness, and decrease in negative emotions. And these results persisted 2 months after the course finished. And so these findings suggest that people can absolutely train their brains to heighten the internalization of good experiences, and how to develop more psychological resources to deal with life and things like that. So I thought that was super interesting. So that's all that I want to go through today. I just want to say thank you for watching this video. And any questions can be directed towards me via the Messenger app, or my Instagram account, and for DNRS retrainers on the community forum. And if you feel called to make a small contribution to a charity to thank me for the work that I'm doing and the time that I put into these videos, I would so appreciate it. My favorite charities are the World Wildlife Fund and the Red Cross, and please don't feel pressured. It's only if you feel called to do that. And if you could message me and let me know that you've done that, that would be awesome. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed doing the research, and I'm so happy to share it with you. So I'm wishing you well, wishing you joy and happiness, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.